The music world moves fast. Want to stay up to date on the latest albums and get in-depth examinations with the artists? Check out Consequence of Sound, the podcast. Bite-sized album reviews for the music fan on the go who wants to stay in the know, and much more. Subscribe to the series on iTunes or your favorite podcast provider, and let the writers of Consequence of Sound steer you right. Check it out at consequenceofsound.net/COS podcast. Consequence Podcast Network.
Welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Wherever you're listening from today, hit that subscribe button right now so you can keep up with these interviews, and if it's a place where you can leave a rating and a review as well. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest, Jon Spencer. You know him of the Jon Spencer Blues Explosion or Pussy Galore. He's back with his very first solo album, Spencer Sings the Hits. We're going to talk about what it's been like writing the songs alone as opposed to with a band, how it's sort of a punk record that harkens back to the days of Pussy Galore. We also get into his involvement with the movie Baby Driver, how his song Bell Bottoms soundtracks that iconic opening scene, and if he thinks he might work with Edgar Wright ever again. We'll also hit some anniversary dates, the album Acme at 20 years old and Extra Width at 25. It's Kyle Meredith with Jon Spencer.
Hey, Kyle, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks.
Well, hey, man, let's start then with the with the most obvious, easy question. After, nearly 35, 40 years in the business, Sing the Hits is billed as your first official solo record. Why is that? What brought you to this point?
Well, 30 years, I suppose, 30 years of playing in bands and making a racket and touring around and doing this and going there. And, I didn't have a band anymore. I was playing with Boss Hogg, and Boss Hogg put an album out last year. That record is called Brood X. And I think it's a great record. Very proud of it. And we did some touring, played some shows, and I love Boss Hogg, but it's not really a full-time thing. So I didn't have a band of my own. I missed having a band. So I figured, well, we should just get up and do something. So I wrote these songs and went out to the Key Club in Benton Harbor, Michigan, and recorded this album with Sam Coombs and M. Sword.
I mean, you sort of, I don't know if you call it poking fun at the situation or anything, but there are moments around the record where it's mentioned. I mean, you look in Beatle boots and there's that line, "Who wants to be in a band?" Some self-awareness.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the reason I started playing music, and part of the reason I keep playing music is because I love music, in particular rock and roll. And it's just an overwhelming passion and obsession. And I suppose that passion and obsession includes, everything that goes along with the actual music. So I suppose it's, yes, on this record, on Spencer Sings the Hits, there's some, nods. There's references to youth culture or rock and roll or youth rebellion and pop culture. But that's always been in there. And I think that just comes from, I guess, being a fan, and it's sort of like being a garage band. You're in love so much with some of these records that you just gotta try to do it for yourself. It's like, well, I can, let's try and play Satisfaction in the garage. Let's do it.
Yeah, I've never been one to grab onto the hyperbolic headlines of rock is dead or whatever. But I do find that rock is underground again as far as the mainstream goes, and has been for a while now, and it's really comforting.
Well, for me, I mean, my entire I came up out of the underground. My heroes were people that always made their own path and did their own thing. People like the Velvet Underground, the Stooges, people like Throbbing Gristle or Einsters and Neubauten, people like Big Black or the Jesus Lizard, or people even like Charlie Feathers, Rufus Thomas, artists that were uncompromising and really just did their own thing and kept doing it. And, it's nice to have a hit record if you can, but, I'm interested in art and not commerce. So, for me, it's not like I never started banging away on the guitar because I thought I could make money at it. I started banging away on the guitar because I couldn't help it. There was, I had to do it. And, I've been doing this, like I said, we've already discussed, I've been doing this for a while. This thing comes up and down and cycles in and out about, well, rock's in, rock's out, who's dead, who's not. For me, it's still, very much alive, and I've always been, outside the mainstream and down in the underground. So, and there's a lot of other cool people here too, and so I've never, people want to come in and join the party, that's fine, but we're just going to keep trying to push forward.
Well, I'm very grateful of that as a fan, anyway. Very grateful.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
And your hallmarks, your uncompromising hallmarks are all over this record too. I have in one of your recent interviews, you said maybe more specifically this is a punk record that possibly even harkens back to the Pussy Galore days. Did I read that right?
I mean, and there are some very definite clear nods to Pussy Galore. The metal percussion is the most obvious, and I think the heavy influence of '60s garage punk. Another thing is about half the record is recorded and it's kind of a slack tuning. Songs were written in a specific key, and then would put the guitar way out of tune and try doing a couple takes at that. And Bill Skibby, the guy who produced the record with me, he and I would think we discussed. Well, yeah, that sounds okay, or maybe it's not so loose. Tighten up a little bit. And that's another nod to Pussy Galore, because when Pussy Galore was making our early records, we didn't have a guitar tuner, didn't use one. We just kind of tuned to each other. And so the guitars all sort of, I guess, would routinely be, nowhere near, concert pitch. So a lot of those early Pussy Galore records are very, have a very funky sound. And so some of the songs on Spencer Sings the Hits were done in a similar slack style.
And speaking of funk, I'll bring up the song "Hornet" as a favorite of mine. That's got a great groove to it, right from the beginning.
Well, thanks. I think we got to give props to M. Sword, the drummer. He really is such a fantastic player, and he's a guy I got to know working out at the Key Club, the fabulous recording studio, the Key Club in Benton Harbor, Michigan. Because I've been out working there with Blues Explosion and Boss Hogg, and so when I wanted to make this record, that's why I wanted to go back there, because I really love that studio, and I like working with Bill Skibby and Jessica Ruffins, the owner and operators. And Sword is somebody I just got to know from being out that way. He's a buddy of theirs, and kind of would help them build the studio, repair things, do kind of construction jobs. But it's also a fantastic drummer, I learned, and he's got his own recording project. M. Sword, he plays a kind of one-man band, and he's put some records out. But so I needed a drummer, and Sword, he lives nearby in Kalamazoo, so I called him up. So I think he's really what makes that song "Hornet" something else.
You talk about how much you like playing with other people and in a band, but the songs themselves, you wrote these alone at the beginning.
That's correct. Yeah. I do most of the time. I am writing with other people. I do like being in a group. I like to bounce ideas, and feed off other people. And so typically when I'm writing by playing with other people. Be it Judah Russell and Blues Explosion, or playing with Boss Hogg. That songs come out of playing together. But I didn't have a band, and so I just wrote these songs by myself. So it was kind of a lonely process. But again, here's another a throwback to Pussy Galore days, because in the start of that band, I just would write by myself.
I love how it turned out, man. It's such an exciting record.
Well, thank you. I'm pretty happy with it, and these past few days have been a real adventure. Because this is the first time we've ever played. We played our fourth show last night in Goshen, Indiana. So we're working hard every day and every night trying to. Well, for me personally, I know for sure I'm trying to find my legs, and with this new band and new sound, and I'm trying to whip it into shape.
Well, I'd like to ask about a few things in the past, if you don't mind, and we'll stick in the more recent past right now, because of course, Baby Driver comes out. Was that last year before? There you are, right at the beginning.
Last summer,
and Bell Bottoms. I mean, how much of a return have you seen on this? Has this been a big noticeable spike?
Well, the sad thing is that Baby Driver is just a wonderful film. Full stop. I really think it's a great movie, but I'm biased because I'm in it. But even if I wasn't, I'm a big fan of Edgar Wright. So yeah, it's a great movie. A big return as far as these days it's all about Spotify. So that particular song saw a huge jump on Spotify, but that doesn't really translate to anything. It's not like people are going out and buying a vinyl single or buying the album that features the song. They're just streaming it, and that doesn't translate to anything in my pocket. But there have been some positive results, in the wake of that film, a couple opportunities to license the song for advertising. So, yes, it has been a very good thing. It's been a great thing. But more than anything, it was such a absolute amazing thrill, to watch that scene and see how how Edgar used the song and what he did with it. I mean, and I've known about this for probably 20 years. The first time I met Edgar Wright, which was in 2005, I believe. So my math's way off. Right? So it's, time flies, baby.
That's right.
So when I first met Edgar, one of the things he said to me was, I got this idea for that song. I'd like it in a film. I said, yeah, okay. Yeah, because he's had the idea since 94 and 95 when he first heard Bell Bottoms when Orange came out. He's been thinking about that. So, it's the song, and I'm not just, talking nonsense here. Edgar's told me that the song inspired that entire movie. Wow. That was the starting point. So, it's really, kind of too much for me to handle or describe. I mean, yeah, it was really an amazing, great thing.
And now it's one of the most iconic music moments in movie history. I mean, just instantly.
The kid's good. Edgar Wright, man. He knows how to make a movie. Yeah, I mean, I saw it twice. I saw it in the cinema twice, and both times there was just spontaneous applause at the end of that opening scene. So yeah, he's a very, very clever guy.
Would you work with him again? I'm sure you would. Is there any plans maybe to
Sure,
collaborate?
yeah. I don't know if you know, but I'm actually in the film. I have a small cameo at the end of the movie. Most people don't realize that I'm in the movie. I don't blame them, but I guess if there's a Baby Driver 2 and they need a prison guard, if Edgar calls, I'll go. I'll go back to prison.
I'll go back to prison with Edgar Wright. That's a nice line right there.
Headline. Boom.
While we're kind of in the movie thing, because I do want to jump back to a couple anniversary albums too, and this one doesn't exactly fall into that, but it leads into that. In 1997, you covered Right Place, Wrong Time for the Scream 2 soundtrack. That was my introduction, my personal introduction to the Blues Explosion. Blew my mind, how that happened. And you worked with Dan the Automator on that one, right?
That's right. Yeah, we were very lucky to work with Dan, and he was such a great help. And so I don't know what in a film, it's the music. It's not the person who composes the soundtrack, but the
supervisor. Yeah.
Supervisor. That's right. So the supervisor asked the Blues Explosion to cover that song, and I think we used the opportunity, and the budget that they were giving us to work with Dan. We were fans of the Dr. Octagon record, in particular the song "Blue Flowers," which was something we played and on repeat endlessly in the tour van. So we were keen to work with Dan, the Automator, and this was an opportunity to make that happen. And I can't remember if at that session we then did the other tracks for Acme or they were done at a later session. But yeah, Dan was it was very nice to work with him, and I like our cover of Right Place, Wrong Time. I think my favorite thing the Blues Explosion did with Dan the Automator, that was talk about the blues.
Well, that leads into, that Acme is now 20 years old. It celebrates the 20th anniversary this year. And that's a big cast of characters you guys had for that record. Dan, the Automator being one of those. Steve Albini was in there. Yeah,
we tracked. We went out to play the New Year's Eve at the Metro in Chicago, and I guess 97 into 98. So what do you call that? New Year's Eve 98? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. And then we played, I can't remember if we did one show or two shows at the Metro, but then we went to Steve's studio, Electrical, which was brand new then. And they were still building the big room, the A room, but we worked in the B room for about 3 days. After we did our New Year's Eve show, we went to Steve's place, and spent about 3 days recording, and we had a huge pile of songs. So we just laid everything down, and then in the months following, we mixed with some songs with one person, some songs with another person. Acme was sort of like a remix record before the fact, a premix or something.
Yeah, right.
But one of my favorite part of the session with Steve at Electrical was one night we heard that Andre Williams, like a rhythm and blues artist, was playing somewhere relatively close by in Chicago. So we said, "Oh, we gotta go see Andre Williams," and we went over to the club and caught a show, and then went up and talked to him. I had met him once before in New York City, and Andre was a guy who, made these incredible records like the Jailbait and the Greasy Chicken, and all of these fantastic early singles on Fortune. And then he'd worked, for Ike Turner, and he had such he worked for Motown, for Chess. He had such an incredible career as a performer, a songwriter, and a producer, and so he was this legendary guy that sort of had reemerged and resurfaced and was out playing again. So we said, "Oh, we got to go see him." And we went over, saw him, and then went to say hey. And I said, "Oh, we're just down the road. We're making a record." And so Andre said, "Well, let me come over." So we went back to the studio and we did a few more songs. One of them was the song "Lap Dance." And once Andre got in that studio, it was great. He just sort of took over. His producer instinct kicked in. He just took over the situation and began ordering everybody around. But that was a great night. Yeah.
And I'll bring up one more too, the last one, because as the big numbers go, Extra Width also is the 25th anniversary of that one as well. And for me, it seemed like that was the one where you guys really got your footing as to what the blues explosion was going to be from here on out.
The first record from the Blues Explosion is just sort of a spasm of energy and ideas. And then we went out and played a lot of shows, and we toured a lot, and we did a couple tours with the Jesus Lizard, or maybe just one long tour. And just playing a show every night, playing again and again and again, touring, helped the Blues Explosion focus and figure out how to work together and help us more clearly define each person's role within the band and the sound of the band. Also watching the Jesus Lizard night after night, how they worked and how dedicated they were and how hard they worked was a big influence on us. It made a big impact. And I think, if my memory serves me, at the end of one of these Jesus Lizard tours, we then went straight to Easley Studios in Memphis, and that's where we tracked Extra Width. Then mixed it in New York City with our friend Jim Waters at the old Waterworks.
It's kind of fun to read, some of the articles that were written about the band back in the time because, culturally, the mainstream or whatever you want to call it, it was easier to be something different and to be accepted, I think, and to kind of sneak in the back door for a lot of bands around that time. Mm-hmm. And while, you might not have sounded like whatever was on, top 40 radio at the time, although there was a lot of rock on there, you still had so many people talking about you. I mean, you were like the buzziest of the buzz. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I could say, well, we were lucky, and I think we were lucky. We definitely got some good breaks, but also, we were a good band, and we worked very hard, and a lot of the notice we got was just because we were out playing. We weren't necessarily relying on mainstream media or MTV we certainly weren't relying on any kind of real radio play. Mm-hmm. We were just out there touring, playing, and converting people one show one night at a time.
Story of your life, right there. What a line to end it on.
We just did it last night here at the Ignition Music Garage in Goshen, Indiana, which is actually a really wonderful record store and venue. It's in an old auto body shop in the town of Goshen.
You're right up the road from us. I'll point out to you, you're set to be in Louisville on August 9th, so not too far away at all, playing at Zanzibar. I'm so excited to see the show.
Another very cool venue.
Mm-hmm.
A nice spot. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to catch it. And again, I'm so excited for this Spencer Sings the Hits record. Congrats again, man.
Let everybody know, and thank you so much for doing this, and tell them to come out to see the Hitmakers.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure,
All right,
sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Likewise. Bye.
Bye. And a big thanks to Jon Spencer for that call right there. The new record is Spencer Sings the Hits. Don't forget, you can subscribe to Consequence of Sound's YouTube page right now. Hit that subscribe button to keep up with your favorite artists and interviews. For you podcast fans, maybe you're listening iTunes, Podchaser, wherever you're getting this from, subscribe there. Then give a rating, leave a review as well. And you can head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern, where you'll also find some bonus episodes over there. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.